Before we get into this episode, there's something that might be of interest that I wanted to tell you about. Scene and Heard, who run this podcast, have been asked by Scotland Food and Drink to undertake a strategic review of the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards. Now, these Excellence Awards have been going for almost 20 years and are a huge mainstay of the food and drink sector. But it's time to ensure that they're still relevant. So if you have ever been involved in the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards, or even if you've ever had an opinion about them, we would love for you, please, to complete our survey. So if you go to the On Farm Twitter, which is at @on_farm UK, and click the link in the bio, there will be a tab in there that will take you to the survey, and it should only take you a very short while to complete, but we would be enormously grateful. Hello and welcome to On Farm. I am Anna Davis and it's great to be with you again. We have a really good opportunity for many of you this week because entries are now open for this year's Helping It Happen Awards run by Scottish Land and Estates. As they say on the awards webpage, they recognise the role of estates, farms, rural businesses and individuals who are helping rural Scotland to thrive. So this episode is all about how the awards came into being, what they aim to celebrate and achieve, and perhaps more importantly, how you can apply. We have put a link to the awards entry page in the show notes that accompany this episode in your podcast player, so you can get the details there. And we will hear shortly from 3 people involved in this year's awards. But first, here's Robbie Kernahan, Director of Green Economy at Nature Scot, who this year are one of the headline Helping It Happen sponsors.
Well, Nature Scot have been involved in the Helping It Happen Awards since 2018. And they're really just a chance to come together and celebrate all of the fantastic practice that goes on in rural Scotland. We celebrate our landscapes and nature in Scotland, are very proud of them. So it seems only appropriate that every now and again we get a chance to showcase all of the good work that goes on. So we are happy to sponsor the awards, and in particular recognising all of the good work that's going on in response to nature and climate crisis, enhancing our environment accordingly.
We'll hear more from Robbie later, but first it's time to bring in this episode's other guests.
My name is Ronnie McRae. I'm the Chief Executive of the Communities Housing Trust.
I'm Lucy Label. I'm a community engagement and marketing consultant, and I also sit on the board of Scottish Land and Estates.
My name is Sarah Jane Lang and I am the Chief Executive of Scottish Land and Estates. Part of Scottish Land and Estates' role is to highlight the positive contribution made by our members to communities, to businesses and to sort of a vibrant rural Scotland. And a few years ago, we were discussing internally about the case studies that we had, the stories and how we get them out there. I spoke to, at that time, Ramsay Smith from Media House, who was our comms advisor. And as all good comms professionals do, they take a good idea and they make it even better. And he came up with the Helping It Happen strapline. And to begin with, it really was just a campaign to gather stories, share them with politicians, with the media, get the good news stories out, because it did seem at the time that all the media wanted to do was kind of cover the tiny amount of kind of bad news stories. And the media weren't looking for the good news. And we also had members who were doing fantastic things, but were terrible at blowing their own trumpet, celebrating success. But we were delighted with the interest that members showed in the kind of campaign. So when they started doing that, we kind of thought there's a germ of an idea there for an awards scheme. I still remember we had 40 people in a room in Edinburgh with myself and Doddy Weir handing them out. And within a year, it had just snowballed. It really captured the imagination of members, but also of our partner organisations, because I think that's one of the strengths. It allows our partner organisations to highlight the work that they do, whether that's on conservation, on education, communities. So it allowed them to be public about the fantastic projects they were doing. And we don't limit it just to SLE members. It's very, very inclusive. So, we open it up to anyone who's a success in rural Scotland.
Yes, I think when we come to talk about some of the previous winners and what they've done, that will become obvious. I think that it's not just SLE members, it's any rural business or individual or community or enterprise doing great things out there in Scotland. And I think that's really important to be inclusive. Interesting point you made there, though, that I think Scottish people in general, but perhaps particularly rural Scottish people, are very humble and modest. And you said there that there are a lot of people doing great things, but they don't tell the world about it because of that humble nature. Lucy, do you think that these awards help that, to allow people to get these stories out there? And if so, why is that important?
I think, the fact that Sarah Jane talks about the evolution of it, even in year one of helping it happen, I think quite a lot of people didn't even recognise that what they were doing was special. And I think it probably took the Scottish Land and Estates team to go out and point out to them all of the amazing things that they were doing, and actually that these were award-worthy. So I think not only is it about telling other people, but it's almost about letting people stop and take a minute and celebrate what they've achieved, because we tend to focus on what's next and what more we need to do, and we don't necessarily stop and pause and go, gosh, we've come a long way, or gosh, we've achieved a lot. And I think helping it happen is what allows everybody to sit and do that. And I think it's great.
Ronnie, coming to you are presiding over an organisation that is a past winner. Can you tell me a bit about why you entered and what that meant, and how winning has made a difference to you?
Yeah, well, I think as Sarah Jane and Lucy are just talking about there, we're all very busy. We're all trying to get things done in the rural areas. There's a huge amount of innovation, huge amount of positive stories, but we were always too busy to lift our heads and really take stock of what positive things are happening. So this is a great outlet. We've been lucky enough to get a bit of assistance now on the marketing and getting the good news stories out, and I think it's hugely important. It creates an awful lot of confidence in the rural areas, because really the opportunities are huge to do a lot more. Really positive work already happening, a lot of good news stories. We're just scratching the surface on the good news stories just now. Yeah, these awards are a great opportunity to highlight the work that's been done.
Yeah, well, definitely. It's storytelling. I think probably most of you have mentioned storytelling. But is it also, Sarah Jane, do you think about some degree of kind of motivation for people? You know, I imagine that a lot of the staff members within the winning organisations or businesses often kind of feel like a boost is great. And do you think that's good for them and for the businesses and for wider rural Scotland?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, when you get to the awards ceremonies and you have the finalists there, and they'll come up and sort of say, thank you for recognising this. I was just doing my job. They are really, really grateful that someone finds them special. And I find that humbling, because when you look at, the wealth of talent and expertise that, we're celebrating, it's hard to believe that they don't realise just how special their stories are. And what it does, it inspires others. So what we see is that, every time we put a story out, whether it's a housing one with Ronnie or one of the many other Helping It Happen stories, we get members phoning us. How do we get involved? That sounds great. How do I do that? So it inspires their peers, as well as giving back to the people who have done the fantastic work in the first place.
Yeah, and I think probably all of us to some degree, and many other people that we know across the rural sector in Scotland, are all about trying to give the rural sector a stronger voice and to be heard. So Lucy, in terms of sort of Rural Scotland PLC, what do you think these awards are able to achieve?
I think, as Ronnie alluded to, everyone is so busy, and not everybody has, a big marketing machine behind them or that resource. So this is a real opportunity to promote what we're doing and why it's really innovative, and why people across rural Scotland are making a real difference, and for them to raise awareness of what they're doing and of their organisation. And essentially it's a big marketing boost for the individuals, but also, as you say, Rural Scotland PLC, so to speak.
Now, at some point today, I'm going to have to read out a list. I tried to think of a clever way of doing it, and I don't think there is one, because I think it's important that we do highlight all of the categories. So I'm going to go through them, and then I'm going to pick on Ronnie, I think, again, to talk to us about housing in particular. But these, I think it just highlights that the Helping It Happen Awards cover pretty much everything that goes on in rural Scotland. And again, when we come to talk about some of the past winners, again, as Sarah Jane highlighted, these are across the board. They're not just people who own large estates in Scotland, as some people may inaccurately assume. They're businesses that are doing great things across every single facet of rural life. And I think that's so important. But in the list, there are 9 categories, and they cover conservation, education, enhancing the environment, innovation in farming, combating climate change, rural business, rural housing, tourism and visitor management, and communities. So I actually challenge anybody to find any kind of rural business that doesn't fit into one of those categories and therefore is relevant and eligible for these awards. But Ronnie, when it comes to housing, can you tell us a little bit even just about some of the challenges facing rural housing in Scotland, and why an award like this helps to perhaps raise awareness?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you say, it really is about raising awareness. It's about giving everybody in the sector confidence, and the awards are great for that. When we're looking at housing, we take a very holistic approach. So our work touches on virtually all of the elements you just mentioned, the categories you just mentioned there, and it's really about how housing can assist on all these things: the climate change, the rural businesses, whether that's farming or whatever. And it's really taking a proper holistic approach. Being able to highlight that is hugely helpful. In my opinion, it influences policy and legislation going forward. It also highlights the cooperative working and the partnership approach that's used in virtually all the projects we're involved in. And like I say, that goes across all portfolios and all sectors, which is hugely important in rural areas.
Well, yes, and I think not something that's actually covered enough in the media, and there probably isn't enough of an awareness. And so I think anything that the Helping It Happen Awards can do, as Sarah Jane said at the very beginning, to tell some positive stories about what's happening. You know, I get fed up reading all the negatives about rural Scotland and all, landowners are doing this, farmers are doing that. It's really time to change the narrative, and the Helping It Happen Awards are a key cog in that wheel. Sarah Jane, I'm absolutely not asking you to pick a favourite here, but I suppose in the current climate, which of these 9 awards kind of is standing out for you at the moment in terms of being relevant to what's going on right now in terms of rural Scotland?
So if Ronnie hadn't already covered housing, I'd have picked housing. We had our annual conference yesterday, and it was homes at the heart of rural communities, because of what we're talking about is people. So none of this happens without people, and people need homes to live in. That's for me that's central. It's really difficult to pick, because let's say you mentioned, Anna, that that there's very few things happen that couldn't fit into one category, and what we often find is that we get an amazing project that could fit into 5 or 6 categories because it has a kind of sort of multifaceted approach. They're dealing with climate change. They're creating new homes, but they're definitely creating new businesses. They're working in the communities. So I think for me, it's the stories that kind of tick more than one box and could be kind of multiple category winners, that really kind of stand out for me and for the judging panel. And if I could just give a little bit of a plug to the judging panel, because it's not just all internal. We have fantastic organisations like Scottish Enterprise, RAS. We have, so we have people who really know what rural Scotland is all about, judging. It's not just a case of us patting each other on the back as rural landowners and rural businesses. And I think, again, the thing that comes through every year is that kind of multifaceted, people aren't just pigeonholing themselves into one category. They're pushing forward fantastic projects that tick all the category boxes.
Lucy, you work a lot with rural communities, so you kind of know what's going on the ground. And again, not picking favourites, but is there anything that's kind of standing out for you this year in terms of the 9 categories and what might just be relevant to what's going on in the world or in the news or in rural life?
So I'm going to dive in with a favourite. I'm not sitting on the fence. I think for me it's the education piece. It's the involving young people. And I know it's a cliche, the whole, this is the future. But even yesterday, in the context of housing, we were talking about them a lot at the conference, because actually, when we're talking about long-term planning, which is what a lot of SLE members are doing, we're not necessarily making decisions for the short term. So the children at school at this stage are actually the people that are going to benefit from the decisions that are being taken now. So I think it's anything that organisations can be doing to go into schools or to engage with people. And I think yesterday was the Border Union Schools Day in Kelso, and these initiatives are amazing. They're an opportunity for us to highlight to children who perhaps aren't as embedded in rural life as we maybe are, that they can be involved in the future, what these decisions mean for them, how they can be involved in decision making. And that came through in terms of community engagement, whether that be for housing or woodland creation or whatever it might be. Young people have a lot of opinions, and it's brilliant to be hearing them. So that's the thing that I'm really excited about when I see the examples of people going and bringing our young people with us, so to speak.
One thing that crops up a lot within our podcast, but within the rural community in general, is the, shall we say, hammering that rural landowners, farmers often get with regard to climate change, and again the need for positive storytelling. So Sarah Jane, you've got many actually categories that kind of envelope that, but in particular conservation, enhancing the environment, and then specifically combating climate change. Why do you think these three or more categories are so important right at the moment?
It's a really good question. We used to have a category called green business, because of course that was the kind of, dare I say, the old label for businesses which were taking extra steps to be ecologically or climate friendly. I think that, the reality is you've got lots of kind of things happening, whether it's COP26 or sort of external factors. But the reality is that the way people are managing their land is increasingly looking at how they can work alongside nature. So whether that's nature in terms of the wildlife, whether that's nature in terms of the soil, or whether it's a kind of combination of it all. We often talk about, integrated land management, rural stewardship, long-term sustainability, and these are just all buzzwords kind of thing. What we're really talking about are people working with nature for the long term, as Lucy's already said, for the next generation. And I think it's one of the reasons that we do have a number of categories, because there is just so much happening across Scotland in relation to this. And it's one of the areas where we often have to kind of encourage people. Because we're visiting estates, we're visiting farms, we're seeing businesses, and we'll be like, "My goodness, this is absolutely great!" And they're like, "Yeah, no, we've just created this wildlife pond, or we've just changed our approach to farming, or we've just reduced our carbon footprint." And they just see it as a normal part of changing their business, adapting, making their businesses more resilient, without realising just how special the action they're taking and how inspiring that is. So there's so many examples across Scotland, and we just need to encourage more and more people to kind of pop their hands up and say, "Yeah, I'm doing a great job," and that success should be celebrated.
And then, as we've said, you're then actually facilitating them to tell that story, because you're producing case studies after the awards have completed. And actually, so therefore, the businesses don't have to do that themselves. They, again, overcomes their modesty because somebody else is writing the great things about them on their behalf. All positive. And well, Lucy and I actually both live in East Lothian. So when I was reminding myself of the past winners of various categories, it was very encouraging to see the East Lothian Countryside Volunteers in there as a past winner. Ronnie, a question for you. We hear a lot, and in fact, last week's podcast was all about agritourism. So tourism and leisure within rural Scotland is massively important. Does it conflict at all with the housing category and what you're looking to achieve? How do the two of them work, kind of, I suppose, in sync or partnership with each other in order to be celebrated?
It's about balance in most communities. Obviously there's the issues well discussed about Airbnb, etc. And when the balance goes wrong, that's not great for a community. But I think given the range of options now and solutions, communities, when you work cooperatively together in partnership, and that's everybody, that's landowners, the estates, the businesses, the service providers, and all the different community bodies, you can redress the balance and make sure it works for everybody, because tourism is a key employer and economic driver in most communities, especially rural communities. So it really is down to cooperative working and using some of the solutions that are out there to make sure the balance is right.
Scotland wouldn't be where it is without tourism and without the fantastic effort that everybody puts in. Lucy, one of the previous winners of the Community Award was the Ayrshire Food Hub. They were also recognised last year for kind of continued contribution during lockdown. How much do you think these awards contribute to kind of helping with perhaps the more disadvantaged people in rural Scotland? Because, let's face it, that not everybody is living the lifestyle that they might choose, and some people, particularly at the moment, are really struggling.
I think actually what this does is encourages more people to get involved and support those that need the support. I think for those who perhaps haven't necessarily thought what they might be able to contribute, this will raise awareness with them. But I think also for the people who are already doing it and taking the time and are by no means doing it for recognition or praise, but rather to support their community because they're part of it and they want to see it thrive and they want to see people bounce back. I think as well, there's an awful lot of compassion out there, and I think people recognise that we're all just a couple of days away from it being us if something doesn't quite go to plan. So I think actually what this does is gives a big pat on the back to the people that are playing a part, and perhaps encourages other people to play a part as well if they're not already doing so. And I think a lot of what Helping It Happen recognises is partnership working, so how different groups of people or individuals or organisations can come together for a kind of collective aim. Yeah, I think if this can encourage any other groups to come together and do that, then it's a real win.
So Sarah Jane, it's not actually just about the patting on the back and the positive stories. It's actually about inclusiveness and making sure that the whole of rural Scotland is recognised and supported. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think it's about connections as well, because, you can put out, sort of dry policy briefings or statistics about the number of houses built in Scotland or the number of red squirrels that we have. But unless you personalise it, people don't connect in the same way. So personalising it through stories allows the public to connect, and it allows the organisations, the businesses, the people that are working this day out to feel, to feel appreciated, to feel supported, to feel recognised and valued. And I think that's that is a huge benefit of these awards. It isn't just, one night, pat on the back and it's all forgotten about. We celebrate these successes constantly. We share them with politicians, we share them with local media, on social media, and all of our case studies. It's not just about the 9 winners of the categories. It's everyone who puts an entry in. We share those round, we share the stories, and the wider benefits of Helping It Happen are something that I feel very proud of.
So I apologise to listeners. I'm just going to do another very short list because I think this is important in terms of the organisations that are supporting these awards. So in terms of sponsors, we've got Anderson Strathern, Bell Ingram, Douglas Hume, Murray Beath Murray, Shepherd and Wedderburn, Velux, GLM, the McRobert Trust, and then also Nature Scotland, who are headline sponsors, and who we're hearing from Robbie from Nature Scotland today. But Sarah Jane, without these businesses, we might not even be here having this conversation. How important is their support?
Oh, as you say, the awards couldn't happen without it. And it's not just about the financial support that they give that allows us to provide awards for the award winners. It's about the commitment from them to share the stories. So they'll share it to their audiences, to their clients, through their social media. So the reach of the Helping It Happen message is amplified, especially when you start looking at some of those national companies that we have on board. And of course, having a government agency like Nature Scot kind of elevates it to the next level. So could it happen without it? Yes, but it wouldn't be anywhere near the success that it is without the support that we get.
Sarah Jane mentioned there the importance of sponsors to elevate and bring attention to the awards. And it's a good cue for me to bring back in Robbie Kernahan, Director of Green Economy at Nature Scot, for more about why Nature Scot are keen to support the Helping It Happen Awards this year.
Well, I think it's really important for us all to recognise and understand that the nature in Scotland and the landscapes in Scotland have been sculpted and shaped by many, many years of management. And I think there's an awful lot in that to be celebrated. But let's be clear again that nature is actually in crisis, and we do need to continue to invest in nature and manage our land in response to that. So we do want to have a thriving rural economy in Scotland. We want to help businesses invest in that work and encourage landscape scale nature recovery. And all of that requires interventions and skills and knowledge from people in farming and fisheries and forestry, in upland management, just to help continue to position, I think, Scotland at the forefront of leading a response to that nature crisis. Hugely important and lots of work to do. But the benefits of these awards, bringing people together to celebrate the progress that we are making. So Nature Scot, again, sponsoring the Enhancing Our Environment Award. This award in particular recognises business that are doing that vital work to tackle the loss of nature and address the climate change crisis as part of their business strategies. So we want to hear from businesses who are involved in river and peatland restoration and other landscape restoration work, and thinking about land that's managed specifically for the benefit of protected species, maybe involving eradication of invasive non-natives, or indeed seeing benefits to the business models through changing their approach to managing land for the benefit of nature. And over the years, we've seen many great projects. Last year, Pat Wilson Farms at Loch Rosk and Wester Ross, I was actually just there last week, looking at all of the peatland restoration work they've been doing, up to 2,000 hectares of restoration on degraded peatlands and native woodland projects. So fantastic showcasing of what's possible, actually, in West Ross. And in 2020, winners were the East Lothian Conservation Volunteers, who run a voluntary eradication programme removing giant hogweed from the River Tyne and all its tributaries. So there's an awful lot going on. But we're encouraging others to come forward, because I think it is important that we can and do shine a light on all of these great projects to help others understand what's happening, but also what more we can do. And I think this is a bit of a clarion call from me, really, to continue to recognise that we need to do this work. We do need to enhance our environment, and we need to do more. But coming together and celebrating everything that's going on, I think that's a really nice thing to do, and one of the benefits that we see of this particular award.
Thank you again to Robbie Kernahan. On now to the important topic of how you can enter the awards, and also why you would want to, the benefits it could have for you, your enterprise, your local community and beyond. So here's Sarah Jane Lang, Chief Exec of Scottish Land and Estates.
Helping It Happen is really easy to enter. So, there's lots of award schemes here which have, different stages. You have to submit full business plans. We want to make this as easy and simple for you to enter yourself or to nominate other people. That doesn't mean that it's not a robust award system. We look at the businesses and partnerships in detail, but we don't. Ronnie said earlier, people are busy, so why would you put them through hours and hours of additional work to apply to the award? So ease of entry is something that Scottish Land and Estates has worked very, very hard to maintain. So I think that's something that I'd definitely like to highlight to people. Another thing is, we've mentioned the categories. If you don't think you fit into one of those, don't worry. Send your good news stories in, because as well as us kind of looking where you might fit, we have usually had special judges, the judging panel awards. That's usually happened each year, where someone doesn't quite fit into one of the categories, but they are just so special that we want to celebrate them. So those special judging panel prizes are now a kind of routine feature of the Helping It Happen Awards.
And I would like to reiterate again that effectively, as long as you are operating in rural Scotland, you are eligible for this. We've got winners that include, yes, estates, Rothiemurchus Estate, but also Peelham Farm, the Ethical Dairy, Ogilvy Spirits, kind of a personal favourite of mine, won't tell you why, Fask Forestry. This is like, when you go onto the website, which you can do, obviously, and look at all of the past winners, the breadth is just astounding, actually, and I think that's just really important. So nominate somebody else or yourself. Sarah Jane.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about the wider benefits to the award winners, and we know from feedback that we've had that customer numbers have gone up for businesses because we've raised the profile of a fantastic project. We know that it's actually helped open doors for funding. because, you're an award-winning project. So when you apply for funding for the development or extension or something else, people sit up and take notice. Again, it's created profile, it's created local support. So the knock-on effect for projects and businesses which are recognised is something that certainly shouldn't be underestimated.
Mm-hmm. And you don't just have to win to see that benefit. Even if you're shortlisted, there's still a lot of output that goes on, and a lot of more people will become aware. So it's not just about awarding a gold medal; it's about all of the other medals as well.
Absolutely. And, I think I said earlier on that there was a feeling when we started this that the press wasn't interested in good news stories. And my goodness, that couldn't be further from the truth. Every year they're clamouring, especially the local media, both print and radio and TV, to sort of say, let us know about the finalists. Who are they? We've had them, interviewed, whether that's been some of the young people or some of, all the projects involved. So the press, especially the local press, just really lap up these good news stories. They want to help celebrate success now.
So thank you very much, all of you. Before we sign off, I suppose the practical point of today is these are easy to enter. For a fairly modest investment of time, you could be seeing increased visitor numbers or whatever it might be that's relevant to your business. So this is hugely important, I think. And so all you need to do is to Google Scottish Land and Estates. You'll go to their website, and actually I have to say it's an incredibly easy to navigate website. Once you're on the website, you will with great ease find the Helping It Happen page, and it's all laid out for you very clearly as to how you can enter or how you can nominate. And there is also information about each of the categories, and I think pretty much all of the previous winners, and a case studies of them, so you can see what they've done. You don't benchmark yourself against them because you're different, but you can at least get more of a flavour if you're not already familiar. And the deadline is at the beginning of July, so you have a good chunk of time to get that done. Although if you're anything like me, you'll be doing it at 7 o'clock the night of the deadline. So it's very easy to do, and I hope that we've really highlighted the benefits of doing so. So I think it's a fantastic initiative that Scottish Land and Estates do, and hopefully it's good to highlight not just the work of rural businesses, but also to highlight the work of Scottish Land and Estates, because a lot of these businesses really rely on you to support them, and so hopefully it's got that dual function. But thank you very much, all of you, for your time, and hope everybody's enjoyed listening. And please, you don't even have to put pen to paper because it's all online, so please, if you can't nominate yourself, go and nominate somebody else, because it's really worthwhile.
So that's it for this episode of On Farm. Huge thank you, as always, to Sarah Jane and Lucy from SLE, and to Ronnie McRae from the Communities Housing Trust, and of course Robbie Kernahan of Helping It Happen Award sponsors Nature Scott. Please do apply. Good luck to you if you do decide to jump in and give it a go, or even to nominate somebody else. So good luck, and please don't leave it to the last minute, as tempting as that may be. A reminder before we go that the On Farm podcast is made by Scene&HerdPR and Marketing, so you can talk to us anytime if you have any marketing or communications queries, and of course if you want to know how you can get involved in the podcast either through sponsorship or further development. So bye for now, and thank you for listening.